Hello, everybody. So glad to be here with you today. Hello, Sarah.
Hi.
So glad to be back with you, talking all about red flags in dating. Not yellow flags, not green flags, red flags in dating. What's it all about? Like, really, what's a red flag? Like, how do we differentiate? Is it really a yellow flag? Is it really not? Is it different for me than it would be for you or for somebody else? Like, is like something that's a red flag for me not a red flag for you, but totally a red flag for somebody else? And what's this whole red flag thing? I don't know. You were in dating not so long ago. Yeah.
I was. And I feel like there are so many people talking about red flags. And I've heard people talking about red flags that are actually red flags. And I've heard people talking about red flags that are like, that's human behavior. That's not a objective red flag. So yeah, I'm excited to dive into this and let's do it.
Okay, great. So let's talk about some personality flaws, things that maybe some people think are red flags, and maybe for some people it's not. Like, let's talk about that chetzi, half and half, red flag / not red flag.
1 second. Are you saying, it sounds like you're implying that there could be red flags that are not objectively red. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally.
So are there any red flags that are red flags across the board?
Objectively. Okay.
Let's start with that and then go into subjective red flags.
Okay. So we always put things in categories, things like abuse, addiction. Even sometimes people are like, oh, but I could handle that, right? A family member had that, I know what to do. But it's like a pretty high level of having to deal with something. And if somebody's not on the end of recovery, they're, somebody who's dealt with addiction, they're like, once an addict, always an addict, but like, I'm in recovery, right? And then they're constantly in recovery for that. So if somebody's in recovery, that's not what we're speaking about, because that means they've gone through a process of healing. But let's just say somebody who's in recovery for 2 months is very different than somebody who's been in the process of recovery for 2 years or 6 years or 10 years. And it just makes a very big difference, and it makes a difference to the person who is trying to deal with it, to figure it out. But if somebody is an addict currently, they're not in recovery. If they have abusive behaviors, physical, mental, emotional behaviors, financial, there's a lot of financial infidelity and financial abuse and people taking extreme advantage. I've had a client tell me, Aleeza, I don't think I should do this, but I'm not sure. We've been dating. It's been about 2 months and he needs to borrow like $3,000. And I mean, he's really just getting off, getting on his feet and getting off the ground and getting things going. And I mean, I don't know what to do. And I said, who else knows him? Right. And who else can we contact to find out? In general, if the person you're dating is asking you to borrow large sums of money, red flag across the board. Most likely they will take it. They'll break up with you. You will never see the money. So if you plan to ever give money to the person that you're dating, I would expect never to see it back. You won't be disappointed. If you do get it back, surprise.
Right. Is there a certain
Hebrew lesson with this too?
Is there a certain point at which you would say, okay, this is probably not someone who's just trying to take advantage of you. This is someone who may just actually need help. Like, does it make a difference if you're dating for 2 months or 2 years?
Yes. The longer you're dating, the more likely that this is a real person who is there and they're with you and they want to be with you. And if it is, don't write a check to my name, I'm getting this business going, I'm building myself and I just need a little help, I need a loan. And if there's a business contract with a legal document, right? You can take those things more seriously than somebody who's like, write a check to my name. Make it out for $3,000 and I'll get it back to you as soon as I can, right?
You know what it reminds me of? I don't know if you remember this, but I was dating my husband for 2 months at the time, and he went to Uman for Rosh Hashanah, and the guy who booked his ticket there was supposed to book his flight back and didn't. And my husband realized like hours before he was supposed to go to the airport, and they had no decent internet connection, and it was like a mess. And
I
he called me.
remember
Remember
this
this?
story.
And I was
Yeah.
like, help. And I was like, okay, I'm going to help you. We're going to figure this out. And I'm pulling up tickets. And I remember telling you the story after, because I told you, because I was like, this is a guy that I want to go through life with when things don't go his way, because he can handle it. Like, he didn't panic. He didn't freak out. He was like, it's okay. We'll figure this out. I'll get a flight. I'll get a train. I'll go here. Worst case scenario, I'll spend Shabbos on my own. There's a Chabad here. He was like, it's fine. It's chill. And your first reaction was, one second. Is he paying you back? Did you pay for the ticket? I was like, no, Aleeza, I just booked the ticket, but he gave me his credit card information. And you're like, oh, that's good. That's good. We like it.
Right. So there's a very big difference between, oh my gosh, I'm really in a bind. Can you help me out by booking a ticket for me? Here's my credit card number, versus bail me out, send me a ticket. I'm stuck in another country. I can't get out. We've all heard those stories, but they really happen. And then people take the money and they disappear, or the relationship doesn't work after a month or two, and then poof, it's really gone.
Okay, so we're saying that there are real red flags for things that are objectively red flags. In 1 minute or less, can you tell us what to look out for? Are there specific signs that we could that your listeners could look out for if there's an objectively red flag?
So I would say if the behaviors are repetitive. Okay. So I had a girl, she was dating this guy, and he, would have a few drinks, more than a few drinks, consistently, not just on the weekends, sometimes on Tuesdays and sometimes on Thursdays, and whenever his friends would call. And he's like, no, but like, I'm not like an alcoholic. I'm not like, I do it because I want to, because, we're going to have fun. But like, when I'm married, I won't really be like that. Right. And I said to her, when he's married, he will be like that, but he will also probably do whatever he's doing more, because our behaviors under stress are usually multiplied, and we start to do self-soothing, calming behaviors. And to him, this is calming. It makes it better. She said, but he said he's not an alcoholic. And I said, okay, so his self-definition is not alcoholic, but it's not accurate. So I would say consistency in whatever you're doing, right? Consistently doesn't have enough money, is always borrowing money from multiple people, right? Or if it's not alcohol, it could be drugs, consistently doing this. I'm not talking about once a year somebody does something and you're like, ooh, I don't like that behavior, right? This is something that's ongoing. Or anger. Okay, that you do something, you forget to do something, and they come and they're like, I can't believe you did this. Why would you do that? That's ridiculous. And then afterwards they apologize. Oh, I'm so sorry. I mean, really, you set me off, right? And every time, quote, you set them off, they freak out. I don't care how much you, quote, set somebody off. Somebody can only be set off if they allow themselves to indulge in anger regularly. So if you see consistency in a behavior or in a pattern of something happening, you can know that that is an ingrained within them behavior that they're really going to have a hard time getting rid of. And if it's something that makes you uncomfortable or feel unsafe, it's a red flag.
Got it. And so all of these are behaviors that could be changed. Doesn't mean these people are undateable for life, but as long as they're not dealing with / not recovered from whatever it is, then that's a hard red flag. Okay, let's talk about subjective red flags. What does that mean? Because I know that when we go through the soulmate clarity system with our clients, we often are looking for those red flags that are potential deal breakers. Does that mean as soon as someone sees a red flag, it's like, bye?
Right. So subjective red flags could be that for you, it's a red flag. Just for example, I'm using the examples that we had, but if you have any new examples, throw them my way, right? Somebody who does, let's just say, have a drink once a week, like that's their thing, right? And if I had a parent who was an alcoholic, that for me is like, woo, right? Like all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, consistently, it's happening every week. Oh my gosh, it could turn into something. And all of a sudden I'm freaked out because I don't want to live with that. And I don't want to deal with that. I either want a non-drinker or somebody who, doesn't have habits like that, who hardly touches it. It's not once a week, right? Is it really a red flag to have a drink once a week? It's not. Statistically speaking, it's not. But for a person who has a sensitivity to that, it is a potential red flag for them because it has something to do with their past. And so the red flag is not on the person. The red flag is actually on me.
Okay.
Is this something that I can handle in a partner? I'm not feeling safe. I'm not feeling comfortable. I'm not feeling like I can figure out how to navigate this in a relationship. I'm going to be anxious the entire week because I know on Friday you're going to have a drink, and I'm going to get all edgy because I know what happens when people drink, and I know what I experience, even though you might never display that. That is my own post-traumatic life disorder that I'm dealing with. I'm making up this term, right? And that I'm struggling with and I need to navigate through. And you might not be able to be my partner because I might not know how to handle it unless you know how to help me and I know how to help myself, and unless I've worked through this. So that's where you really have to dig into yourself and do these things and work on yourself.
I love that example because I remember saying throughout my dating experience, there are certain things that I was not willing to accept in another person. And it was not a quote unquote objective red flag behavior. And I just said, based on my experience, my childhood, my life, this is not something that I have the tools or ability to handle at this point. Will that change in the future? Maybe. But right now, I'm not interested in it. And I'm very sorry that it's not fair to you that because of my history and other people in my life, this is not something I'm willing to accept. But also, like you said, I would be anxious all the time. I would feel triggered. I would be stressed out.
Right.
Yes, because I don't have the tools yet. And maybe I'll get them. But if I never do, then for me, that's a red flag and a potential deal breaker.
And if you get them, if you say, Aleeza, that's my person, I have to learn how to deal with this. I am willing to figure it out. What tools do I need on a regular basis? How do I do self-calming, realignments? How do I not look at the other person with these evil eyes, blaming and having a lot of anger or frustration towards them, or feeling a lot of fear, or feeling very shaky internally? How do I work on myself? Then we could work on that. And I would still say, if you're dating the person and you're going through this process while you're doing the self-work and you're with them, okay. But make sure there's, again, with yourself, consistency. Make sure that you've been able to handle multiple situations. Dozens of times this behavior happens. And after my learning, dozens of times I see I'm successful in getting over it. We figured it out. I figured myself out, and you know how to handle it. And together we know how to handle it. I like when couples have challenges. I like when couples have problems, but I like that they overcome them. It's not the problem I like. It's that they pick themselves up and they go, yeah, we got this. And the next time it comes up, because it will come up again, whatever it is, I know they can handle it. So I'm not anxious that this is going to be a couple that's on the verge of divorce for the next 10 years, because everybody has problems in life. But this couple, they know how to communicate and they know how to solve problems. And that to me is key in a relationship.
I really, really, really like that. Aleeza, I'd love to give one more example. I know that we're on a tight timeline today. So I'm going to give one more example. And then I would love, if you are listening on the podcast, please email us, coach@marriagemindedmentor.com, with what is a red flag to you and why? Is it an objective red flag or is it a subjective red flag? And if you're watching this on YouTube, put your comments in the comment section. We would love to hear from you. So I recently had a client where she was a risk taker. She is a risk taker and adventurous and is all about the experiences that life has to offer. And she wants someone who can match that energy, who's open to exploring with her. And he doesn't have to be on her level. He just needs to be open and willing to be led along with her. And he really, really, really wasn't. And she just felt like she was constantly trying to push him out of his comfort zone. And every time they had a conversation, he would say that he was willing to try and he was working on it, but he was doing it for her, not because it was a value to him, not because experiencing everything that this world has to offer was something that was important to him. And it was such a strong value to her. So the difference between how strong her value was versus how it didn't even get onto his values list, that created a red flag. Again, not an objective red flag, but a red flag as this is so important to me. It's at the top of my values list, and it doesn't even come into his values list at all. Am I willing to spend the rest of my life with someone who I feel like I'm constantly in battle with to get them to do things with me, to get them to want to do things with me? I'm not interested in someone who's coming along for the ride just because like, you forced me to.
Right.
So that is
Right.
another red flag.
So I want to point out, and I love the way that you described this. You are describing a red flag between our values and how we live out our life. When we normally think of, or when I normally think of a red flag, I normally think of there's something wrong with the other person. I can't accept this about them, which is true in your story. I can't accept this about them, but it's not a bad
thing.
They just don't like adventure, like not a big deal, but it is a big deal to a person who lives their life through spontaneity and adventure. And it becomes a red flag for us to be together because, like you said, it's going to create this tension between us. So it's not a red flag inherent to who the person is or what they embody, but it's a values conflict. And when there's values conflicts, there is a red flag for the relationship. And that's the challenge, where you can say, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with me, but there's something wrong with us being together because we're not compatible, and there's a red flag there. And I can't continue because you're going to be unhappy and I'm going to be unhappy. And long-term, we are never going to be able to make this work.
Right. And I want to take it a step back and say the reason we call these red flags a potential deal breaker is because we don't have to get to that point where we say, this is never going to work. It depends on all the other things. It depends on what other fears you bring up with me in the relationship. It depends what other things about you annoy me. There are so many different factors, which is why this is a potential deal breaker, because it could be the thing that says, no, sorry, this isn't going to work. Or I can look at the whole relationship and say, this is a part of the package. Am I willing to accept it? Accept being the key word. We don't ignore, we don't tolerate, we accept. Aleeza, I think we're out of time.
I love it. And when you accept, by the way, it turns it into a green flag. It gives you permission to proceed with this relationship and to say, wow, that would have caused a red flag, but I made a conscious decision that it's not. And then my rule, you are never allowed to make the other person crazy about that. You can ask sweetly, do you want to try this? But like, once you accept it is what it is, then we don't do anything else about it, that we don't make ourselves crazy about it. All right.
And if you have a red flag and you're not sure if it's a deal breaker, if it's objective, if it's subjective, at least I think any of our coaches could help our listeners figure this out, right?
MarriageMindedMentor.com. You can find us there. We would absolutely love to help you get over your hurdles and down the aisle and have a big smile on your face, not just on your wedding day, but every day, or almost every day. Thanks so much. See you next time.